Hey everybody, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev. Sup, girl?
Good day. Everything's
Good.
great. We were talking a little bit ahead of time that I'm walking around the house and I'm thinking, man, it's so nice. I don't have anything that I have to do today, not until my grandson's game. And then I was like, oh God. And then I'm running through the house and I look at my calendar and I had written on there 9:30 and we kind of had discussed nine before that. But then you said,
Yeah, I said, on my calendar, I had it at 9. Bev and I share a calendar, so I saw that she had it at 9:30. And so I had some other things to do, but I went ahead at 9 o'clock or a little bit before 9, went ahead and set up to record. So we're doing this in Zoom. So I've had the screen up and everything just ready. But I've been putzing around, but in my mind, I was sending her telepathic message saying, I'm ready whenever you are. I'm ready whenever you are. Right. And but I just kept doing the other stuff I was doing.
and then
And
I received a message
at what
and I looked at the time, it was 9:11. I was like, I gotta hurry up.
and isn't it interesting that it was at 911?
Exactly.
It was nothing urgent. I wasn't flustered or frustrated or anything. With I was just like, okay, well, we're gonna do this whenever we do this morning. 9:30. I got things I can do in the meantime, and I have this set up. So when you come in, it chimes, so it gets my attention. So if I walk away, I can hear it. So,
Nice.
but that leads me to flexibility. We've talked about this before, but I think it's important to I mean, it's always, this might be a new conversation to somebody who's seeing this for the first time, even though we've talked about this other times. And flexibility, I mean, when in the past, and it still shows up a little bit still today, not today, but in my life currently, that when you are on the opposite end of being flexible, you're being controlling. And that's when you need to know who, what, when, where, why. You need all the details. You need to know all the expectations. And you have, quote unquote, all your ducks in a row. And I mean, that kind of leads to perfection as well. But that leaves no room for flexibility. So when things go awry or doesn't fit into your box, then it seems like chaos unfolds. When a lot of times there's a reason why there's a redirection. I've
True.
experienced that this week at my job. Um, in I've been at this job since the end of August of 2023. So we are on May 18th. And in this entire time, this past week was the first time that I've had what I would call a day. Like you just seriously want to throw punch somebody. It's just like on edge about things because it just seemed like one chaotic thing after another. There were three in one day. And I thought, okay, just kept thinking, okay, we got three in a day. We're good. We're going to be good for quite a while now because we got the three, because I always say things come in threes. And it was three back to back to back in one day. And it was just interesting how I kind of got caught up in some drama and then I pulled back. I'm like, okay, recenter, regroup, come on. And then I would get pulled in and I'm like, come back, right? And so I did kind of this in and out, in and out. And it almost made me feel like I was I don't want to say bipolar, but similar to that, right? Because it was an in and an out, and in and in and an out. It was just on this roller coaster of excitement and frustration, and then pulling back, going, okay, take a breath, relax, recenter. And then I get pulled. And so it was an interesting process for myself. I feel like because it was so much in one day at once that for me, I felt like I handled it pretty well for the most part. There were those pieces that were off kilter, and I was still able to recognize it. And really, the biggest piece about that is having the awareness. Like, I know I'm caught up in the drama right now. I know it. What am I going to do about it? Because this doesn't feel good. Take a breath, sit back. But when you have other people in involved and really tied up into the drama and talking about it and bringing all that emotion, it's interesting how much focus it takes to keep yourself maintaining your own energy amongst all that, and being able to, first of all, recognize it, second of all, do something about it, and third, maintain it. It's and always, right? Well, I always say this, like, when it's time for you to level up into something, you're going to be given the situations and experiences to do that. So I was just like, oh, fuck, here we go. And I said
True. It's like,
the F word quite a bit that day, I will tell you.
but to me, that's the path of least resistance. That is, for us, that's like the teapot that's got all that steam built up in it, and it allows that steam to come off of it. It's not good or bad, right? We go back to the whole positive and negative thing. I was just listening to Suzanne Giesemann, and she was saying, on a battery in your vehicle, you have positive and negative. One's not positive and one's not negative. You need both of it to have
Yeah.
the growth, or to make that vehicle run. And so we're having both to, Matt Kahn's talking about busting forth through these things and recognizing all these things that are happening aren't positive or negative. They're just allowing us to let go of some things that we had our claws into it. We were holding on so deeply to this and so tightly to it because we've known it since we were born, not since we were born, but since we were taught it, right? We knew that's the way it was until you find out that that's not true. And we don't know until we start letting go of things.
Yeah.
And then I think you kind of touched on it at the beginning of the conversation, telepathically. We are all energetic beings, all of us. And it ties everything together because we're energetic beings. And you're thinking, Bev, because I do this I play June's Journey on occasion every day for a little bit. And sometimes we have people that are supposed to show up for drink time. If our ribbons matter or whatever during the game, I'll think of the person, and they almost always show up because it's just being in that, if they're able to, it's just being in that space. And it's not thinking like anything like, hurry up, you need to get your ass on here or anything like that. It's just thinking, you just think about them. And then they're like, oh yeah. And then they go do it. And that's the same thing that happened to me today. But that ties into being in the space when you're with everybody else. If you're not watching your energy, now you're walking into a space that someone else's metronome, if anyone knows what that is, it's a little tick, tick. It keeps kind of the balance, or that keeps kind of the tone, how you want to follow. If you're playing music or anything like that, it's constant, rhythmic. You're either going to be that metronome, or you're going to walk into the space and then you're going to match someone else's metronome. And it's like, sometimes we don't want to match that energy, but again, it's not good or bad. It's an experience. And so it's not to beat ourselves up when we go into that space, but just feel how it feels afterwards. Sometimes I've been in that space and it's like, I want to go home and take a shower because it just feels so gross. It just feels yucky, right? It just doesn't feel good, but it's not, none of this stuff is bad or good. It's part of an experience. And it's like, we don't know, gosh, it's this, again, I'll use reference of Matt Kahn. It's really getting to know yourself. We learned about so much about something else, and here we are having an experience. God's having an experience through us, but we don't even know anything about us. And it's really, really taking the time to look at all that stuff. Oh, well, that ticked you off. Why did it tick you off? Like, what was the big deal? Or, what was the whatever the process is that you use. But as being aware of it, like you said, it's just taking the time to take a look at it and see why you're being triggered by it and see why it's showing up in your experience. And then sometimes it's just for nothing at all. It's like, oh yeah, look at me go. Like, even you waiting for me to come on here. It was at 9 o'clock. I needed that extra few minutes just to be able to brush my hair and stuff, because it's Saturday. I'm not in a hurry to do anything. Which takes me into the next thing. I recognize when I'm in the space of that hurry, I'm almost in a shutdown anymore. I can't, it's no longer acceptable for my being to try to fit everything into a day. And I used to do it all the time, and I catch myself occasionally doing it. I was even trying to do it yesterday. And it's like, I have to realize that doesn't feel good. Well, it doesn't feel good. Wait a minute. I don't have to make myself do this. It doesn't feel good. Hey, guess what? It doesn't feel good. I don't have to do it. I don't have to do these things. I didn't do group yesterday. We were going to put it out of the, I had some different things happen, and it's like, and then I had my grandson too. And it's like, I have to recognize what the things that they both bring me joy. But it's like, I know that my grandchildren are, it's very important for them to, for that time frame too. And I'm not saying that group's not important too, but I'm just saying sometimes I have to kind of look at things and value them, because that was our routine was on Fridays, and I was trying to squeeze everything in a day, and it just wasn't possible. Some of these things aren't possible. It wasn't my old way of thinking, but then I would be ragged by the time I got home. I'm not worth anything in my relationship because I have nothing more to give. I'm at the end. There's nothing left. I'm just tired. You're at that space, and it's like running yourself like that constantly. I'll say what's been a big factor for me, I guess probably helping me. There's so many things, but yoga has been a huge thing. And recently, because we went on a hike, because I had my birthday this past week, but we went on a hike for my birthday. We went up to like Oatman area and hiked around and picked up rocks. Well, I loaded my backpack that was on my back, and I paid the price Thursday night and stuff. And it's like, it was not a good night. It was not, but I did it. And it's like, I recognize even at that time, I could have slowed down, right? So I'm slowing down in so many ways, but I'm still recognizing there's things, and it's not good or bad. It's just a recognition. And then knowing I could have gone back to the vehicle, and I had buckets for excess, so I didn't have to carry it on my back the whole time. So it's just recognizing certain things like that. But we get into such a habit of this doing. We got to get it done right now, and we got to see everything we can right this moment. And it's like, it's not, when we're doing that kind of stuff, we're missing out on things. We're not being present. We're too busy rushing around, or we're too busy, whatever you want to label it. So it's just really taking those times. And that's what Kundalini yoga, because I couldn't do the regular yoga. I was hurting too much, but just doing the Kundalini yoga, which is a little less movements, but that's the breath work. And that's, gosh, you could look at it in so many different ways. For me, it's like getting to know my body, getting to recognize where my body's locked up at, because I found this one teacher, I don't know what her name is right now, off of YouTube, and it's free stuff. And it's like, she's just got such a great energy. The classes are short, like 30 minutes maybe. And it's like, it's short, quick, but you recognize when you're shifting your body around and stuff, you recognize where you're holding things and where things are tight. And then she even stops you for a moment after you've done a certain, like I'm doing one that says for chakras. When you get to a certain spot, you stop after that, and you just sit there for a minute and feel how that feels in your body after you just opened it up. And it's like, it's so fascinating, but so I'm getting meditation at the same time. So it's bringing me into a different peace and awareness. And we don't know what peace is until we start experiencing that. We say all the time we want more peace, but sometimes I didn't know what the hell that looked like. And maybe I still don't know, but I'm getting a tip of the iceberg of how it feels. So I'm getting I'm recognizing right now that how that feels different in the body, and it's slowing me down more, which ties into I'm no longer satisfied being on that hamster wheel.
Well, at my job, there are quite a few moments where it's, oh, we got to drop this and go. And we got to be there in a few minutes, and going back to the hurry thing. And I associate for myself, because, my old way of being, people don't get to see that here because that's not who I am at this time. Are there glimpses? Yes. And I want to keep reiterating that because I want people to understand I'm not perfect at this new way of being by no means, because things still pop up, but I also see them as opportunities to, whether you want to call it level up or have awareness of another shift or some energy clearing that still needs to take place in my mental state and emotional state. So every once in a while, we'll remind the audience, I'm not perfect at this still. So
it's practice. We're practicing.
Still practicing. Yes. So the old way of being, I would have been very flustered and frustrated with, oh, we got to go now. Oh, we got to hurry up. Oh, we got to do, right? And because I have been practicing for a while, the flexibility, being flexible, being able to take that breath and pivot, meaning, okay, well, I got to stop this and I got to go do this now, pivoting to something different. I've recognized in myself that I do it pretty well now. At the beginning, when I started first working there, it took a little getting used to, because I mean, I've been in this space, right? Where I'm sitting right now, I've been in this space for about 4 years, and in my own world, doing my thing, and do this when I need to and do that when I need to. And there's just been just been a flowy type of thing. But when you go out into a public job, and somebody's got all these things lined up that you're unaware of because they have their calendar, and you don't see their calendar, and they come around the corner and go, okay, you ready to go? Okay, sure. Let me grab my purse and let me go to the bathroom. But so again, it just coming back to, you know what, this is where we're at the moment. Take a breath, pivot, take a breath, be flexible, take a breath, handle whatever's in that moment. And it does take a lot of practice to be able to do that, especially if you are a person who has controlling tendencies, or you are shifting from, or you're a recovering control freak. It takes a lot of practice to be able to be in that flexible space, and the go with the flow type of thing. And I recognize that when I look at it from a perspective of, oh, okay, we're pivoting, instead of, oh, I got to hurry up, it's two different energies, completely different. And just being able to practice that. And that's, I'm just, every time, not every time, looking back on the history, I've recognized how each place of employment or each business that I've had, that how incredibly valuable they've been in my growth. And even still to this day, in the employment that I'm at now, I'm still growing. And it's in multiple areas. So the hurry up, let's go, we got to go now. Okay, practice flexibility, practicing being able to pivot on it, like right now. Practicing being able to take a breath and just be like, okay, this is where we're at. Practicing holding and maintaining my energy in those moments of when everybody else is getting hyped up about some issue that's come up. Practicing being solution oriented. Like, there's been so many things that I've recognized from being in this job that has been so valuable, and I'm embracing it, and it's been actually really fun. I'm learning, like, party planning. Who knew, right? I'm like the uh like, we do bingo. Not any ever in my world would I have thought I would be knowing everything there needs to be know about bingo, like legit Arizona State licensed bingo sessions. It's just like, so it's been very, very, just the word valuable just keeps coming up, very valuable in having this position, and giving me the opportunity to be out into the public and meeting more people in different areas that I wouldn't have met by continuing to sit here, working on my business. So
Yeah. And I totally understand. Believe me, I have all my moments. Yesterday, I went to one store, and it's like I was in there. It seemed like I didn't think I was in there that long, and seemed to be doing fine. And then I get out there, and it's like I've lost like an hour or more. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me, standing in a line here for something and then not even getting half the stuff. And I was very frustrated, very frustrated. And then just because of the time frame now, then I noticed I was rushing around. Then I'm going to go do a couple other things. And I thought, well, I'm going to go stop off at the other store that's, and then I thought, no, I'm going to go to this different store. for some reason I thought I'll go over to this store. Well, I pulled up into the a spot right up next to the cart return, which is right by the entrance to the store. I was able to walk right in. I found everything that I was looking for. I was able to go in and out there. And in the meantime, I'm having a conversation with Freeman before I even go into this place, like, F this. If this is the way things are going to be, I don't need to be on this freaking planet. I am not going to deal with this shit if it's going to be a struggle. And that was a conversation, right? And then the next thing that happened was like, I'm calling it back up after that. And I'm like, I got right into the first spot. I was in and out of that store after I got all these things. They had everything that I needed. I used the restroom and I go up to the register. There's one person that she just finished up with in front of me. Now, so it was like you said before, the difference was that first instance would have ruined my whole day. And I could not have enjoyed the second instance. It couldn't have happened. And so it's not, I could sit and beat myself up and be like, oh, here you go. Here you're talking about, you're like, I don't need to be on the planet anymore for this bullshit and blah, blah, blah. If it's going to be like all that stuff. But like, again, goes back with you saying the F word all day on whatever day it was. It's the path of least resistance. And sometimes it's better if I'm going to throw a temper tantrum, which I've told my grandkids, adults throw temper tantrums too. And that's a temper tantrum. But you know what? It's better out than in. That's the way I look at it. Now, thankfully, Freeman's very understanding and knows he says it's not my monkeys, not my circus, but he it allows me to have my, process. And so with that being allowed, then I get to look at things differently. And instead of holding on to that, I was able to let go of it and have such a great experience. And I went over to pick up my grandson, and my little grandson's awake and stuff. And I got to give him some snugs and, before Colton and I took off. So then we came up here and played for a while, and it was a great time. Like, we did all kinds of things, and we miss out. I'll go back to the rushing thing. We miss out on things. We're coming up. We decided to go through the mountains, and I know it takes a little bit longer to go that way, but it's all right. We come up and I have to go to the RV park to pick up a package. And I'm like, I told my grandson, if you want, you can get out, you can go look at the fish. And he says, well, can I put my finger in there? And I said, no. And then it's like, I said, but just stay there. You can look at it and I'll go get the package. So I go in and I'm out there and we're looking at it and we're talking about what our favorites are that I would not have allowed in the past. No, we're not going to have time to go play. If we're going to do this right now, we're not going to have time to play. This is part of the play. This is part of it, the play. But this is part of it. And then the gentleman walks out and he says, hey, would he like to feed the fish? Oh my gosh, would he like to feed the fish? And he brings out this cup full, and then Colton's giving like little pieces at a time because he wants to milk this as long as he can. And I loved it. And then I let him drive. We're on a dirt road, so I let him drive. I just let him drive, and he drives the whole dirt road now. It used to just be my driveway. So it's all those moments. We get into such hurries to get to a destination, right? And it's the same thing that Abraham Hicks talked about all the time, or Esther Hicks. Talking about always trying to be in a hurry, but never enjoying the journey to get there. And it's those little, it makes me emotional, but those little journeys that we get to have such an experience with someone else that lets them know how much we care about them without saying, I care about you.
Yeah.
It's just being in that good energy. And then we came up here, we ran around. I mean, we came and we played some ball. We watched we like to watch stuff on YouTube that has like new snakes being born and stuff like that. Super cool stuff that I never would have thought I would never have been interested in, but my granddaughter loves it. So then we started watching this stuff too. And then, so like, we went out and played some ball for a while, and then we came in and started doing some art stuff. And then mom was here. So it's like, it was so much joy to be in all those things instead of trying to control it. Right. Because I've done that. And when it comes to kids, you guys might as well give up. If you're trying to control kids, forget about it. They're not meant to be controlled. I've listened to so much different stuff that's come forward, but they talk about their brains, their frontal lobes and stuff like that. They're not even at the capacity to understand and process things until they're like in their late 20s. But yet we're having an expectation of a child to be responsive and be the same way that we are at our stage. When really our bodies they're not set up to do that. It's not. Kids were meant to be crazy and run around and blow off steam and stuff like that. They're great teachers. It's just recognizing, not trying to fit them into a box and expect them to sit still and expect them to be quiet. It's like, let's nurture them, because at the same time we're nurturing them, or we're nurturing ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. The expectation. I mean, both you and I had childhoods where we had to grow up fast. and be the adult at what, like 6, 4, you know? So yeah, understanding the dynamics of how children are in their stages of growth, and just being sponges and getting all their programming from the adults around them to navigate life in the best way they know how, and then yeah, becoming adults themselves and being a mess, really.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the tools that we're learning today, these days. And so that's part of the evolution, though. That's just part of evolution of humanity and our planet. And we don't know what we don't know. And that's just it. We don't know what we don't know. And so, but the thing is that when you learn something different, it's important to first of all implement it. If it's, to me, if it's something that's going to help you be and do better within yourself, that you implement it, you be the example, and if you so choose, also have the conversations. This is the way we help each other. So it's not to get the information and keep it to yourself. It's like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I mean, how many times have we said we are doing things that feel good to us, and in doing that, we're examples. We're also, by doing this, we're teachers. And then the things that we do outside of these podcast, the classes that we teach, the conversations that we have, we're still planting seeds. We're still having those conversations outside of this. And that's how we start making changes. I mean, the studies that they're doing today weren't studies they did 100 years ago. So you couldn't have had the information then. So for us growing up in the 70s, 1970, just by the way, that gotta throw that in there. um, they had the information we have today. We didn't have it back then when we were kids. And so our parents are living from what they grew up with from their parents, and their parents are growing up from what they had from their parents, which is your grandparents and great grandparents, and the generations go back. I was listening to a podcast. I think it was Lewis House podcast, and he was talking to a lady, and she was saying that our body, like us as when we were kids, so children, that in their bodies they're carrying the energy. She didn't use the words energy, but carrying the energy of at least 7 generations back. That's a long time. That's a lot of years. That's a lot of information, right? And so we're recognizing all these things now. People are studying these things now. And but it was interesting though that he asked, I thought this was quite interesting. He asked, well, do you think that this also pertains, he asked a question similar to this with not exact words. Do you think this also pertains to past lives? And she just kind of glossed right over it and didn't even touch that topic. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. So for people who do believe in past lives, for me, I believe in them. I don't think this is the only life we have. I believe we come back many times, and that we could carry forward some of the energy from that previous life. But generational stuff that a child already has and is carrying. And so, there are groups that do ancestral healing. That's part of this process. So it's just all absolutely fascinating to me, that all the avenues of how we are being affected, not just from our childhood and the people that was in our childhood, but generations.
I can go off on that a little bit just because I know things have popped into my head recently, and I know it's kind of guiding, but there's like instances We look back at pictures of ourselves and we think, oh my God, I look so good then. Why was I being so hard on myself? Well, then take that opportunity right now to be in that space of being almost like as if you were in that body at that time and enjoying that space, because it creates a shift, right? We're creating a shift because everything is happening right now. So for me, I believe in parallel realities. I believe everything's happening right now. I believe that, I mean, these are my beliefs. Will they change? They could. They'll probably get a little bit crazier to some other people, you know, the way that I perceive things. But at the same time, it's like everything's happening right now. So we do have an effect on all those things right now. We absolutely do. And I'll go back to the conversation. Your metronome in the office was your experience, right? To balance for that. And mine's with the grandkids. A lot of times because I can get wrapped up into them really easily. And it's like that's where a lot of my triggers come from. There's a lot of stuff that I noticed that for me, and I would never have noticed this before. But even yesterday playing ball, and it's like I noticed that he wanted to continue playing, even though he was not happy. And I said, I want you to stop and pay attention. How are you feeling right this moment? Because how many people know? I don't remember anybody ever asking me, how am I feeling right this moment? And I don't, maybe he doesn't completely comprehend that, but he will, because again, we're planting seeds. And I remember telling him that because I started matching up with his energy. And it's like, that's not the energy that I want to match up with, because I'm not benefiting that person, just like you wouldn't benefit those people, even though you had a group, which can be a little bit more intense. But that just means that you're able to do it because you're in that space and you're capable of doing this to keep yourself in a balance and keep yourself in it at the frequency that you want to keep yourself, even though there's stuff going on. And we can still get wrapped in it. I could still get wrapped in it. And then I'm like, listen, I said, we probably should go get a snack and have a drink of water. I said, because this is something to pay attention to. Again, because we've talked about this, especially over the last few weeks, paying attention to what does our body need? Because we can't expect this body, our vehicle's not going to run. If we run out of gas, it's not going anywhere, guys. It's going to stay right there. It's not going to sit and cry about it. Now we will, because we'll become emotional because we have no more fuel. We have no more gas in this vehicle to continue moving forward. So it's recognizing those things. And so I'm helping him to recognize his body because it helps me to recognize, because that's been one of my faults. Am I great at all this stuff? No, but I'm in practice of all this stuff. It's all of it's a practice, like we've talked about. All of it's a practice. And it's recognizing how, and it's our imagination. You can create whatever you want to create. So if you guys don't believe in parallel realities, just wrap your mind around a little bit, play with it. It doesn't have to be something that you have to believe in, but it's something I can play with in my imagination. If I was going to write a book that really just didn't have any, there's unicorns and fairies in here and parallels, and Bev's just jumped back into her other body and she's now appreciating that body and she's having an experience with that body that I didn't have before because I was too busy on that hamster wheel. What hit me last night is I never realized when I was raising my kids, I never realized that I could have stepped off that hamster wheel at any time. I could have. All I knew is I had to keep going and going and going and going. That's all I knew because that's what I learned, right? You said we don't know until we know. Where I'm at now, my whole life would be different. I would totally make different choices from that time frame with where I'm at right now because I've slowed down enough to be able to see those things. And it's like, this won't make sense to someone that's on that hamster wheel because they haven't slowed down and it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. How can I do that? How can I do that? And it doesn't make sense because as far as I knew, my mom worked 3 part-time jobs to take care of myself and my sister. So she was busting her butt trying to, make sure that we had food on the table and we had a roof over our head. She was mom and dad at that time. So it's like, it's recognizing you can be mom and dad, but we don't have to be doing all the time. We don't have to constantly try to make things work out. And gosh, we're in a different day and age, right? Even though back in the day we were burned out at the stake, and these days you can be burned out at the stake a different way. So it's just like it just changes how the experiences, but the experiences are still happening until we decide to let go of them. If we're talking generational, if we're talking really, because now the experiences look a little bit differently because now you're not going to have a stake with someone burning at it typically. I mean, I'm not saying that can never happen in this time frame. Anything is possible, but it's being aware that things are still happening and those triggers are still happening for you to release or to look at it and say, oh, I don't have to hold on to that. you were saying something, and I don't remember what we were talking about in this conversation, but I automatically felt like I was someone that was lived out in the West or something like that, and I had to defend myself. Everybody was against me, couldn't trust anybody. So that was how it felt. And then it's like I've carried that on into this lifetime. I have, and then I had experiences that were different from those experiences, but still would be the same thing, that I had to have my own back, and I couldn't count on anybody else or anything like that. But now I've evolved, and I recognize there's so much more to us than us. There's so much more than meets the eye.
Yeah. And as you were talking, like our kids, so we know, because we didn't know at the time what we know now. So we gave our children their programming, right? Contributed to their programming based on how we were living in that survival mode, and the anger and all the things. So they picked that up, and so they're now adults, and they have their own journey, and what they do with the information's their choice. If they choose that, the way they're living life doesn't feel good to them, it's up to them to make changes. So as the parents, we are learning new things, and we have implemented new things, and we are different now than we were when we were young and raising a little person. So I'm not going to say that there's no hope in us affecting our kids, because there is. They're seeing us differently, and I have no doubt about that. But what came to me the most was that by you talking to your grandson and saying, how do you feel? How's your body feel? What emotion are you, right? Having that conversation, or having them tune in, the idea of them, that when their parents, which was Bev's daughters and son-in-laws, right?
Mm-hmm.
That Bev's grandson, when his mom, which is Bev's daughter, when Bev's daughter might have a moment where she's riled up, upset, angry, or whatever, that Bev's grandson stops and says, Mom, how do you feel right now? And just asking that question, and having, because, out of the mouth of the babes, kids get it. And they say things, and it'll stop you in your tracks to be like, whoa, right? You've had it happen with your grandkids. So just the idea of that just really lights me up, because I think it's your kids, your daughters may not be in a space to hear you in what you're doing or teaching or talking about, or the language you use. But when their children says something, that might get their attention a little more. So it's kind of, I don't know, like a backdoor effect on your kids, right? It's just going to be interesting how this unfolds.
To me, when you're talking now, I'm like seeing this makes a difference. It'll make a difference in this lifetime, but it'll make a difference in our next lifetimes together, because the flow will be different. There'll be more compassion and understanding and more love from the get-go, because we're going through and we're learning so much more information. We don't lose that information. We're here having an experience, and we're gaining so much knowledge to be in this experience. We're expanding, and it's recognizing from this experience that we can stay and we could be the curmudgeon and be unhappy all the time, and we'll still be that way in spirit, and we'll still be that way when we come into the next lifetime. Or we can recognize how much we're evolving, because we're evolving so much that we may not see it all from this lifetime, but we're going to see it in our next lifetime when we all come back together, because I believe that we do come together as in our same spirit families, because we have growth, but we also get to see how much we've grown. Because a lot of the stuff we're carrying, like I see my grandson, he matches. So and I'm reading information. So I tell people, kind of, you don't have to believe in signs and all that stuff, and the horoscopes and all that stuff, but look at some of the descriptions of things and see what information kind of gives you a kind of a map or a layout of that child or that person that you have in your experience, because that gives you an idea how to, oh, so he's super sensitive. Like I'm seeing that he's sensitive. and words matter, and it's black and white, and it needs structure, and like all these certain things. And he's the earth sign, just like I am. So it's like we understand each other in a different way, that maybe mom's a water sign, and maybe maybe it's a little bit different for her. She's a lot more emotion, but he has a tendency, because he's sensitive, to match the energies that are around him. And so I'm trying, because I'm learning. So what you've taught me before, teach what you want to know, right? Teach what you want to have an understanding of. It doesn't mean, and because as you're doing it, you learn while you're doing these things. So I'm teaching him, and I get to learn at the same time. So it's my opportunity. I can or I can't, or I can be looking at it from a control perspective. But from my perspective, I'm just like, well, you can be miserable right now. I'm going to be over here. So whenever you want to come play, I'll be sitting over here. And we don't know until we know. So it's like, I've been going on to Instagram. So Instagram, nicely, it's been putting up videos of how parents talk to kids and what they're hearing. And it's the same thing that I think we started talking about it like last year or whenever. It's like redefining what the words mean, or changing different words. Like you said, pivot. I like that. I like that a lot, because I don't have any emotional attachment to that word. I don't have any defensiveness to that word. There's nothing there. So it's like, it's really recognizing a lot of that stuff, and choosing to talk to them a little bit differently, instead of saying, well, you can't have that right now. Well, right now it's this time, but maybe we can have the opportunity for that later on. It's your choice. Well, we can go to that birthday party when you decide to go ahead and get ready, and then we'll go at that time. It's, instead of us being like, we need to go right now, it's time. No, we'll either show up late to the birthday party, because we're putting the choice into their hands, instead of us being adults and then not knowing how to make choices, not knowing how to move forward, because we're looking for someone to tell us what to do. Well, my mom's not here to tell me what to do anymore. Not in a physical plane, right? She's not. And I have leaned on that. There's been so many times that I wanted to go back and have a conversation with her, or ask her about things, or whatever. But I had the question, and that's leaning on something else. But now I've had the question inside of me, and that question I've asked, and then the information, maybe it shows up from Instagram, maybe it shows up from Amy, maybe it shows up from Freeman, or maybe it shows up from my grandkids, or even my daughters, or a conversation I overhear at Safeway. You know what I mean? It's like all these things. So man, this conversation has just gone all over the place. We're like covering so much stuff. Spirit's freaking awesome. That's all I can say, because Spirit like gives us so much information to share, because all I do, and I say Spirit, but it's like, it's God, really, because everything is God. That's just me. That's where I'm at, unapologetically. It's just the way it is.
Nice.
And I love it.
Well, the other thing I was thinking about with your grandson, because he has a little brother now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Love
So whatever the older grandson is learning right now, the effect that will have on his little brother. And that by learning these tools that grandma's sharing with him, he's going to share that with his little brother as he's experiencing these different things. And that just the ripple effect. And like you said, it's affecting now, but the ripple effect of generations to come, that we're shifting that and being a piece of that momentum. Yeah. It just gets me excited. It's just like, well, then it makes you just want to live forever, just to see how that unfolds. But I mean, we do live forever in a different way, and we will be witness to it in a different way. But I know we'll be around long enough well, I feel like we'll be around long enough to see or hear about some of those moments about their interactions together. So that'll be interesting and fun to witness.
Yeah. It's awesome. All of it's awesome. All of our nows, right? Because for me, everything is right now. Everything.
Yeah.
Everything that we're doing is right now. On our what we perceive as our past, our future, our other selves, it's all right now.
Yeah.
All of it. And it's like our kids, like I look at our kids, they're just more aspects of us, because we're all aspects of God, right? So it's like we're all, how could we be mad or angry? It's just allowing them to be in that space. Because I can think, gosh, how did my mom handle me? Seriously, because I have
Right.
so much, really. because there was so much, and thankfully I never hurt anybody
Yeah.
physically. I mean, never to the point where there was no comeback or whatever from things. Because I did get in some fights when I was a kid, but it
Yeah.
was what it was.
Yeah.
It was quite the learning experience I was on.
Yeah. I had a lot of anger in me. So my teenage years, I was not a pleasant person, and I can't even imagine what my mom went through there.
Which is interesting. I see kids like at the ballpark and stuff like that, and I see how some of the adults really like target or like kind of come in and talk to them and guide them. And I, it's something that I could have used. I think you probably could have used. So it's just making sure that don't give up on the kids. Like take the time to have a conversation with them, or take the time to notice the things that you see in them that are so awesome and help that grow. Because those things, man, that can keep a kid out of trouble. That can change I feel like it could have changed my whole process. And it's not maybe something for me to happen in this lifetime. It'll be something in another lifetime, because we're already in that process. You know, when you see other families and someone that's intuitive and mediumistic and have all these natural abilities, they come into a family with parents and stuff that have all those abilities too. So then they're able to grow through. And I feel like the more that we shed a lot of this stuff, and not saying that we all want to be mediums and everything like that, but when we shed all the stuff, we allow such a different dynamics in our flow, and we get to be that which everybody else gets to view and see how things could be different. So it's like it's an awesome thing, and it's not because the work was never done, it's because the work was done. It's because we did walk through it, and we didn't kind of keep stuffing it. We decided to look at the emotions and find out who we really are and be our true authentic selves.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to leave this conversation. That was awesome.
Nice.
And as always, our goal is to share this information, have these conversations. These are our therapeutic sessions every week. And it's for the benefit of Bev and I. It's a reminder for us. It's a sharing of what's working, what's not working in our own lives. And then this these are recorded conversations that are very organic, and we bring this to the public to see, does this resonate with you or not? And if it does, then implement something you learned today, something that you heard, something that felt good, something that gave you those God bumps or goosebumps, and that you felt that like in your heart that this matters to me and this is important for me to implement. And the idea is to implement it, to learn it, to make it a habit and be an example. You don't have to go out and teach it or tell people what to do. It's be the example. And if people ask, then share the information, have the conversations. And then if this is something that you feel is beneficial, then share the content in a way of share the video, share the recordings, have them go subscribe to our channel and help other people. That's what we're here to do, is to help each other move through this life and to help us learn and grow. So don't keep us a secret. Don't keep the information to yourself. Share it. And we're located on many platforms. We're on YouTube, Facebook, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict. I know there's another one that I'm Spreaker. So we have many channels where we can be accessed. So with that, we want to thank you so much for taking your time to listen. And that time is very valuable for all of us. And so just the idea that you took the time to listen and what you do with this information, hopefully is for the best. And we just hope that you continue to learn and grow in whatever way that is for yourself. So do you have any other final words, Bev?
Have a magnificent week.
Yes. All right, my friends. Thanks for hanging out with Tea Time with Amy and Bev, and we will see you next time.